All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cleaning Hustle Podcast. We certainly appreciate you coming here today. I've got a really good friend with me. His name is John, and you're going to have to help me with the last name again.
Naugle.
Naugle. I knew I was going to butcher that. So, John, you and I kind of met through the aviation world. A lot of people that follow this podcast know that I'm big into airplanes. I typically don't make that the focal point, but we can certainly do that today. But tell everybody here kind of what you do. I know you're an entrepreneur at heart, and you've got a lot of different things going on in your world. So give us a brief little synopsis of kind of your world. And
Yes. So I am an aviation real estate specialist, meaning that I sell real estate and I primarily focus on aviation properties, homes that are either connected to an airport or a runway, or maybe they are just a big piece of land somebody uses for small airplanes getting in and out of. But that is my primary focus. I also, of course, sell traditional residential real estate. I've got plenty of friends that use me to help buy and sell, but my passion is absolutely helping pilots get into air park communities and help them live their dream.
So what got you, what made you wake up one morning and be like, man, I want to get into this? Because just on the surface, I'm looking at the surface and I'm like, well, that seems like a very limited market. So what made you drive that direction?
So it all started back in 2016. I was working at a property management company managing a bunch of apartment communities, and I met a gentleman named Mike Roberts. He was an airplane mechanic, and he said, hey, I've got an airplane. Do you want to go flying? And I'm like, huh? You've got an airplane? And he explained to me, he's got a small little Cessna, and he he educated me on how popular general aviation is and how many people are involved with it. And we arranged a time to go up flying, and it was love at first flight. I just got hooked immediately. I still was just blown away. I couldn't believe that I met a guy that could fly an airplane and had one.
Yeah. And how old were you when that happened?
That was 2016. I was 27.
Okay.
So, and I just immediately got hooked, and I still didn't immediately think that, I could become a pilot, but I kept wanting to go up and kept going up with him, and he just said, hey, John, why don't you buy in on this airplane and get your pilot certificate? So that's what I did. And during that process of being a student pilot and getting my pilot certificate, I transitioned out of multifamily and got my real estate license. I started off
So were you in property management at that point then?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. I was actually a regional supervisor. I was managing 11 apartment communities in Texas.
Okay.
I decided, hey, there's better avenues for me, and I would like to get into just selling real estate.
Right.
Helping people buy instead of rent.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, I was a student pilot. I was a realtor at Keller Williams. And then I met a gentleman that lived across the street from my mom. I was walking my dog with my wife, and we see a guy in his garage working on what looks to be an airplane. So I walk up to him and I say, hey, is that an airplane that you're working on? What, the wings are off.
Yeah,
so,
why do you have an airplane in your garage?
Yeah, why do you have an airplane in your garage? And he goes, yeah, that's an airplane. And I go, well, I'm a student pilot. And he thought that was just the coolest thing that,
So was he a pilot or was he building an airplane?
He's a pilot and building an airplane.
Okay.
So then I look over to the left and I see a real estate sign. So I'm like, no way does this guy that lives right next door to my mom, right down the street from me, is he a pilot and a real estate agent? Come to find out, he was a broker. He actually owned his own brokerage. His name's Russ Keith.
Okay, I've met Russ.
Yes.
He's an amazing guy.
And so right when we met, Mike and I, the guy that got me into flying, had decided to create this group called Airplanes and Coffee. And the model was based on cars and coffee. The idea was, let's get pilots to the airport once a month and have a fun meetup. So right before our first gathering, I had met Russ when I was walking my dog, and I invited him to the event because I said, wow, it's so cool that you're a pilot, you're a realtor, we have commonality here. Why don't you come out to this event? So he came to the first one, and he loved it. Mike and I had a great time. Russ had a great time. We had about 15, 20 people show up. It was at Addison Airport. And then gradually, Russ said, hey, this makes sense. Why don't you come join Boomtown Brokerage? And that's what I did. And then slowly but surely, we're like, hey, why don't we make aviation our main focus? Because we love flying. We love these airport communities. We get along great with pilots. We have that common connection already. And it just naturally flowed in that direction. I mean, it's just so amazing how life can take you to places you never saw before.
No doubt, no doubt. What year was that Addison event?
That was in August 2020.
Okay.
And
so
since
it was
then,
kind of in the middle of COVID then.
It was absolutely. And that was our huge advantage.
Really?
Yes.
So why do you see that as an advantage?
Because everybody else had put a pause on their events. So while everybody else was saying, oh, let's, hold off, we said, hey, this is an outside event. Let's go full force with this. The airports didn't mind. There was, we had plenty of space. We were outside, and everybody was looking for something to do. So that by that third event, we already had 60, 70 aircraft show up, including an L-39, tons of people, and we were just in shock.
And you're doing these on a monthly basis, or what's the schedule on them now?
We do them once a month. We've done over 40 events now.
Wow.
We've had over 150 aircraft show up at a single event, over 1,000 people at a single event. And it has transformed into more than just a social hour at the airport. It has actually transformed into a nonprofit organization with the mission of getting as many people involved with aviation as possible.
Wow.
And we do that by having these monthly events, which at these monthly events, we have given over 800 free discovery flights to individuals who have never been up in a small aircraft before. We do this by going out to schools and visiting with kids and explaining to them that there's so many opportunities in aviation. And then we even give out scholarships. So we have the money that we've raised from these events. It's all unpaid volunteers running this organization. So all of that money that we've received has either gone back into the advancement of the organization or to individuals pursuing careers in aviation through scholarships.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. And so when you started your Facebook page, what year was that?
August 2020.
2020. Okay, so 4 years in exactly almost.
Yes.
And you went from 0 to, what are you at right now?
Just over 340,000.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So you and I had lunch a while back, and you were kind of talking to me. I was super intrigued with kind of how you started the Facebook. And so what I'd like to do, because there's a lot of, people want to look at that as an avenue, especially in the cleaning industry, of like, how can I use, Facebook marketing, Facebook as an avenue. Now, I'm a flight instructor, so I used to do back in the day, this was back in 97, so a long time ago, we used to do a thing called Fun Ed. And this was they actually had it in Carrollton. And what I would do is Fun Ed was actually a facility where adults could go and they could do pretty much anything. If they want to learn how to sew, if they wanted to learn how to fly an airplane, they just had all these different things that you could sign up for. And so we at the flight school in Mesquite actually got a contract to be their exclusive flight school to do their Fun Ed. So it was basically like every Friday an introduction for me to get new students. It was a great marketing thing for us. So I would go teach a 30-minute presentation on what is an airplane, what makes it fly, like what's an aileron, just very, very basic. Like if you've never seen an airplane in your life, this is how core basic we got with it. And so I would, give a 30 to 45-minute little speech on that. And then after we got done, we would sign them up for discovery flights. So I would typically on a Saturday, I would do 12 discovery flights in one Saturday because the class ranged from 12 to 15 people, and we tried to do them all on one. And I had 100% closing rate on gaining new students. And I thought, and it's so funny how easy aviation is to sell.
Yes.
Now, not all of those completed, but when I say 100% closing ratio, I at least got them to sign up for their first lesson.
Right.
The completion rate was probably less than like 30% of those actually finished and got their private pilot license. But I want to kind of unpack, from you doing your Facebook page, and then I want you to talk a little bit about like aviation is really easy to sell. So somebody that's watching this might say, well, sure, it's airplanes. Of course, you built a Facebook page up to 340,000 people because people are intrigued by airplanes. How do I do that in my janitorial business, or how do I do that in any other business?
Sure.
So talk through kind of the stages of how you built that up, how you got yourself known, and kind of walk through that with us.
Absolutely. So the first step was just to, create a group with an appealing name. So Airplanes and Coffee has a nice ring to it. That was my thoughts on it. So
number one, and I'm glad you said that as number one, because the thing I tell new business owners is pick the right name.
Yes.
A name is going to care. I mean, it's a legacy piece for you.
Yes.
You're going to be the founder of this organization. And so when you pick a name, that's super important. And I mean, even as like for Cleaning Hustle, I mulled over the name of Cleaning Hustle for probably 3 or 4 months. I had a list of like 40 different names, and so it's super important. Pick the names. So
yes.
I want to make sure we point that out.
A good name, vital. The second thing I did was I started looking for other aviation Facebook groups that already existed and already had big numbers of members in them. And I took the link from my group and I put it on their page, and I said something to the effect of, I love this group XYZ. If you love Airplanes and Coffee, then you'll also love this group. So that way, the person that created the other group, I'll just say the one, it's North Texas Aviators. That was one of the big ones. I would go into North Texas Aviators and I would say, I love North Texas Aviators. This group is awesome. If you love North Texas Aviators, you'll also love Airplanes and Coffee. And then I put the link on there. And I would do that to all of the aviation groups. And the reason I did it that way was so that the person that had North Texas Aviators didn't feel offended and didn't feel like I was just going and poaching their members.
Right.
I was also scratching their back by saying this group is fantastic. At that point, it's kind of hard for them to want to delete my post or be upset with me because I'm giving them acknowledgement that they've got a great thing going on.
Right.
But the same side, then all of those people who I already know are somewhat interested in aviation see my group and say, hey, well, why wouldn't I want to join that one?
Right.
So that strategy could be applied across the board, finding groups that have some sort of common interest with what you're trying to blow up and posting your link to your group in their group, because then you're automatically getting exposure to a lot of people who already are obviously interested.
Did you get any hate mail from that?
No, honestly, I didn't. It really helped us out. So that was one of the pieces. The other really important piece is engaging content, posting stuff on the group that people will share to their page.
Give me an example of one of those.
So I started off posting a lot of funny memes because memes are something that people tend to want to share because they're goofy and funny and they get a laugh out of it. They want to make their friends laugh.
And mostly aviation-related type things.
Yes, absolutely. So by posting something like that in the group that I know people are going to share on their own personal Facebook page, I know that they're going to expose my group to all of their friends on their friends list that's not already in my group. So now you're really getting exposure because you're not only getting the people in the group happy, you're getting all of their friends when they share it to know about you and hopefully click on the group, look at it, explore it a bit. So engaging content that people will post on, comment on, or share, that is really the secret sauce right there between that and copying your link onto other Facebook groups that already exist and doing it in a way that doesn't offend them to get those members, and then keeping your members engaged and giving them material that they will share on their page. That machine is what really helps. And then marketing, right? We've got a great logo. Airplanes and Coffee, that logo's on probably 5,000 shirts that people are walking around with out there, right?
Right, yeah.
So that brand awareness, just like the name, that's a vital piece of it as well, in my opinion.
So So you did all of the aviation groups. Did you go to like Cars and Coffee and put your group in there?
There, I got a little kickback.
Yeah, I imagine you
They were like, "Hey, bud, this isn't."
You're infringing on our idea here.
Well, not even just that, but they were like, "This is a cars group," so sometimes there's a little bit of that. But
so did you do like try different avenues in different groups, and were you successful in any other area besides aviation?
Yes. So every time we have an event, if we're gonna have a fly-in in Ardmore, Oklahoma, like we just did last weekend, I'll go and join all of the local Ardmore, Oklahoma Facebook groups that I can find. Maybe locals in Ardmore, Oklahoma, or Ardmore, Oklahoma community page, whatever.
Or garage sale.
Garage sale.
Right.
All of those pages I can find, I'll go join. And then I will share the link and I'll say, here's an upcoming event in Ardmore, Oklahoma, free public aviation event. Come out, explore aviation, go on a free discovery flight, learn about, the opportunities that exist, speak with pilots. All of the, ammo I can and throw out there and entice them with, I do that. And I have now probably joined, I don't know, thousands of groups because we've been to 22 different airports. So every one of those I've tried to get the word out in the local community. But as a result, again, that brand has been spread through all of those communities, and a lot of them have at least clicked on it and looked at it. And then if they come out to the event, that further gets them involved or further makes them aware and makes them go and talk to more and more people. So it's just a big spider web effect.
So what do you would you say your percentage of like a family that says, oh, let's go to, this event, and they don't really have any aviation background? I know you just said you do a bunch of discovery flights and things like that.
Yes. So it started off with mostly pilots. And then slowly but surely we said, hey, you know what? The real value in this for the community is getting people out to the airport that have never been exposed to general aviation, just like I wasn't previously. So we have taken our focus away from just really focusing on getting the pilots out there to the community. And as a result, we're probably at about, on average, probably about 75% pilots, 25% community.
Right.
And we would love to see, 50-50. I'd love to have 150 pilots out there with beautiful aircraft, and I'd love to have 150 or more people from the community that have never been to an airport that's other than, Dallas or Love Field, and give them that opportunity that I know so many of them appreciate and want. And once they get that opportunity, it's like, hey, sky's the limit.
Yeah. Have you done any collaboration type things with like Young Eagles or different organizations that do the discovery flights?
So we haven't with Young Eagles specifically. We've had EAA chapters help us with various other things, marshaling airplanes, talking about EAA. We've had the Commemorative Air Force out there with some really neat birds. We love teaming up with them because, that brings value to the events for sure, and it helps their organization. Civil Air Patrol has helped us marshal airplanes a number of times. We're completely open to collaborating with any other nonprofit organization that is involved with aviation. I mean, It's just we're all on the same path here.
So do you find yourself, back to the Facebook, now, how many hours did you put into building that in the beginning?
It's hard to say. A lot. It became an absolute addiction.
Yeah.
And it was a pleasure because, again, I knew that once we got it up to a certain number of people, it would just take off on its own. Because
that's what I was going to ask.
It's exponential.
So did you see a certain level, like at 50,000? Did you see it, like, where do you think kind of was that tipping point where it just sort of went viral?
Probably about between 50 and 80,000. It got so big that, again, if you share something, so many other people will share it. That just brings on so many more people, So it does get to a point of where, first of all, you've got to bring on a team of moderators. We've got 70-plus moderators on Airplanes and Coffee because, we get over 3 million views a month. We get 25,000 posts and comments a month. And in that, you inevitably have, bad posts, inappropriate posts, negative posts, things that you don't really want on the group because it sours the overall
right.
Image of the group. So you've got to have a lot of people watching it constantly and ready to remove those posts and talk with the people that are making them, try to correct that behavior, or if it's
and I'm sure you guys have inside, because it's aviation related, you probably have, if people are starting to get political.
Yes.
Like in a lot of the groups that I'm in our industry, we get a lot of scams with, hey, you want government contracts, you want this. And so there's been several of our groups in the cleaning industry that someone started a group, then the group started to grow, and then whoever started it was the only person that was an admin on it. And there was nobody that was a moderator. There was nobody managing the group. And then so this group ends up morphing into a complete disaster because nobody's watching it.
Yes.
And then everybody ends up leaving the group because, so it's, how do you get, like, from the moderator perspective, do you just have people that come up to you and say, hey, I'd love to be a moderator and help you kind of manage this group? Or how did you get to 70 people that are actually kind of overseeing the group?
So I had made a couple of posts saying, hey, this group is getting very large. We need some help. Is anybody interested in moderating? And people that have been in the group for a long time, that enjoyed the group, that wanted to be a part of it, want to be part of something bigger than themselves, they willingly raise their hands. In fact, we've got a lot more people out there that would like to be moderators, but we're just trying to keep some control over our moderators and make sure that we've got the right ones in place, so we're not, banning people that shouldn't be banned, or being biased with our decisions. So the more manageable we can keep it, the better.
Yeah. And where does things ever escalate to you guys, or you just kind of let them have?
We have a group chat. I've created a outline essentially for decision making that they use as a guide, and then it of course says, if you ever get to a point of where you need assistance or advice on something, reach out. You've got resources. So we have set them up with a guide for success, a do, don't type deal, and then the door is always open. You've got to be able to communicate to your team, because otherwise, they're gonna make their own decisions, and it might not be the one you wanted made.
So how has this group benefited your real estate?
It has actually done a pretty good job of getting my name out there, getting me introduced to people. People do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Right.
So by people getting to know me, some of them have grown to like me, and then some of those have grown to trust me. Those are people that I've been able to help. We have another page. I don't really put anything real estate related on Airplanes and Coffee, because I didn't want to convolute that. I didn't want people to say, okay, he's only doing this because he's trying to better himself. So what I did was I created a separate group called the Flying Real Estate Agents, and that group's at about 3.8 thousand members, and that's the group that I focus on my real estate stuff.
Right.
So with Airplanes and Coffee, the group, the only thing I've ever posted on there regarding real estate is, this event was sponsored by Boomtown Brokerage, the brokerage I work for, because we spend quite a bit of money on donuts and this, that, and the other. So that would be the only instance. I like to keep those two things pretty separate, just because, again, the nonprofit or Airplanes and Coffee, it really means everything to me. And I would hate for anybody to think he doesn't really care about that. He just wants to sell real estate, when in fact that's as far from the truth as possible. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But it's a hard balance, because I get people ask me all the time, like, why are you starting the Cleaning Hustle podcast? What are you trying to gain from it? And for me, it's giving back to my community in the cleaning industry, hopefully bringing value to them. Hopefully somebody's like watching this and they've been interested in starting a Facebook group, and they can hear what you say and things like that. But personal brand, I actually just watched a reel last night, and it's the kid that's like 21 years old, and he goes around and asks people what they do for a living. And so he was asking this lady, she was driving a Lamborghini, and he said, well, what do you do for a living? And so she kind of unpacked what she did, but she ended with saying that the most important thing you can do is build your own personal brand. And so for what you've done, you've built, in essence, a personal brand of who you are as a person inside of what you're doing. And that takes that's that where you come back and say they like you, they trust you, they believe in you. I mean, I have, you know, few interactions with you. And, you know, if I'm looking at you and I went and looked at a piece of property a couple of weeks ago, and one of my dreams is when I find that right piece of property that I'll live on an airport community at some point. Hopefully I'll get there. I still haven't found the right one yet.
We'll get there.
We'll get there, hopefully. But I think that the personal brand is really important. And so what you've done is you've built a base of a Facebook group of, you know, and there probably is a good percentage of that 340,000 people that may or may not even know that you're a founder of the group.
Absolutely.
That, you know, they don't, but the ones that do know you trust you because you've been out there showing what you can do and what you can accomplish. And I think if someone's watching this and they're trying to figure out like where's their place in the world and they're trying to grow their business, starting with personal brand, because even though you don't post on this site, it still helps you. Whether you know,
yes,
I think I probably found you through that site, or maybe one of the other real estate sites. Who knows? But it all interconnects, and it all says that, hey, John's a great guy. You can trust him. And I always tell people when they ask me about, you know, Cleaning Hustle is, in our industries, we have to be a trusted source. We have to be somebody that people can look at and go, yeah, that person's legit, especially in my industry. My industry's got a lot of fly-by-night type businesses in it because janitorial has a low point of entry as far as starting the business itself. And so we see a lot of companies come and go. And so unless somebody does a lot of research, or, you know, now I get people that'll Google my name and they'll say, oh, I watched your podcast. And it actually helps me in business meetings as well. You know, I'll go to a business meeting. They're like, oh, I already know all about you. I've been watching your podcast. And it actually kind of sets the stage for your credibility.
Exactly. And we live in such a phenomenal time. And I feel fortunate to realize that, because if you were to give a real estate agent a cell phone, or a smartphone, I should say, with Facebook, and tell them 50 years ago, hey, I can give you a little device that you can contact as many people as you want instantaneously, hundreds of thousands, millions, what would that be worth to you? And people 50 years ago would have climbed Mount Everest with no clothes on to get that, right? They would have done anything.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people have that luxury and they don't even take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So,
or they don't understand the power.
They don't understand the power, yes.
I was walking down the hallway in the back of our offices here yesterday, and my daughter was down at the other end, and I held my phone up in the air, and I said, this is my money maker right here. This phone
100%.
And it, you know, even prior to cell phones was still my money maker. You know, you get on there, you dial, you make it happen. One thing I really love about our cleaning industry is that I don't have to sit and wait like a car dealership. You drive by and you see all these sales guys standing there waiting for someone to pull on the lot, and then they're just like vultures. Everybody's like attack. Well, with this business, you can go out and anything you see is fair game. So you can go out and talk to people, interact, you know, get that, and then pull them in the front door, and then you give them something they didn't even know they need, or they realize, wow, you guys are so much greater than what I have.
Yes.
And so the opportunity, and you know, real estate's a lot the same way. You know, you're posting a beautiful home and somebody sees it and they're like, oh, I got to have that. You know, hey, honey, we're selling the house.
Yes.
You know, so I want to, on the last little bit here, I want to unpack the event side of it. And the reason why that's important for what we do is our industry has morphed, and I've watched it over the last 5 years. It's really morphed into kind of the highlight points you said. You started off with a good name, and then you started off with networking and how important the networking is. And then another piece of our industry that's really come out is a lot of events happen now. And so there's a lot of up and coming business owners. There's actually an event here in our building in October that's an all Latino female business owner event. And so I'm seeing a lot of, you know, new events that are coming up. And it's actually, I always ask myself this question, and some of my friends that are going to watch probably be mad at me, but I always think, like, what is the point of these events? Like, I'm not getting a customer out of the event. You know what I mean? I'm not, because it's all interconnecting with our business owners. But what it is giving is bringing value. It's teaching. It's, you know, for my case, I've been in the industry so long. I'm an old dude in this industry, and so I can bring value to other people. I can teach them, coach them, train them, and then they can leave and become better individuals and grow their businesses and things like that. And so, like, I just talking to a guy the other day, and he was telling me that his sister is, goes to several of these events, and he's watched her more for a cleaning business, from just her cleaning buildings to doing over $1 million a year. And he attributed it to these events. So what I want you to unpack for me, if you would, is just really just the organizing of the event, from like the nuts and bolts of, I mean, if you're putting on an event like that and you're doing it kind of on a volunteer basis, like, how do you get people to help you with the event? Who's organizing it behind the scenes? Like, just talk through, like, from beginning, okay, we're going to go to this airport, do this fly-in on this date. That's the starting block. How do you create a successful event?
Sure. So we started off by, just exploring different airports and deciding which ones were the most suitable. You've got to know what you're going to have at your event. We knew that we were going to have a lot of airplanes, so we knew we needed to have a lot of space. An airport with a little ramp space wouldn't work. So when you're picking out a location, make sure it's conducive to the type of event you're trying to hold. It's also in a location that the people that you expect to show up to your event are going to actually attend. It's not too far out for them. That's a big piece of it. So we were looking for airports within 150 miles of DFW that were big enough to host an event of our size and had an airport staff that was excited and eager to help out. That was a big piece of the initial formula. Then wrangling up people that were passionate about airplanes and coffee. That was the other big piece, because like you said, when you're not paying people, getting them to show up somewhere on a Saturday morning isn't always easy. So you got to be good at just, scoping out people who are passionate about what you're trying to pull off and recruit them. Get them part of the team, make them feel part of the team. And the more you can do that, the better. They're going to feel like they've got a purpose, a reason to be there. They're not just helping you increase your dream or expand your dream.
So on that note, do you have a core group that follows you from events, or every time you do a new event, it's like you're starting over building?
We have a core group.
Okay.
So we have a core group.
And how big is that group?
It's about 10 people.
Okay.
And then each event, we typically have the airport staff helps out a pretty good amount. Then we might have, again, some other organizations. And then we have some local volunteers at each of those areas that we go to. We'll say, hey, I'm not going to travel to Mineral Wells, but when you come visit me in Terrell, I'll help out.
Yeah.
So, making relationships in each area that we go to has also been helpful.
And how much planning goes into them? Like, how much time do you need to put one together?
Once you get the formula down of, again, we want to have this many people helping park airplanes. We want to have this amount of coffee and donuts, and we need somebody to either bring them or, make the coffee and brew it. We need this many people helping, get people in and out of airplanes. We need this many people giving discovery flights. Once you understand what the event's going to entail, you can break it up into, okay, we need this for this, we need this for this, and then you can understand your team and what you need that team to be for each event. And then it's just a matter of finding those butts and putting them in the right seats.
Right.
And that can, that can be a game of, well, maybe that butt needs to move over to this seat, or maybe that seat is too big, whatever.
Yeah.
There's some experimenting there, but once you get it down, it's pretty easy. I feel pretty confident that with my core of 8 or 10, we could pretty much go to any airport that I can get them to, and with just the support of, a few other individuals or companies, we can have an event. So just knowing what you're trying to pull off, breaking it down into a level of the roles and positions, and then just making sure those are filled.
Yeah. Do you ever do any guest speakers or anything at your events, or is it strictly like a social event?
We've had guest speakers. We've had, activities. We've had vendors come up. We like to make it as much of an event as possible. We have a lot more ambition and goals that we want to accomplish. Again, we're just at that point of right now where we need more funding for that, frankly.
Sure.
We want to have workshops. So when the pilots come in, for example, a great workshop would be like a preventative maintenance. Have a couple of A&Ps out on the field, showing pilots the basic preventative maintenance things they can do, letting them play around with it. Not all pilots know how to change a tire or work on, change their oil, but these are simple things that they can be taught that brings value. We could have just speakers in general for people from the community that don't know anything about aviation, giving them a aviation 101 type course, like you said, just very elementary. We could have a more advanced class for people that have came back, a little maybe 102 type deal. There's just so many different things we could do. We've tried to do as much as we can, and right now we've just built up our team even stronger. We've brought on some new people, a gentleman named Ryan Sterling. He is going to be really a powerhouse. He's got a lot of connections, and he's drank the Kool-Aid.
Right.
So
that's important.
Or the coffee.
What about sponsors and vetting sponsors?
Yes. So Russ really handles most of the sponsors as far as that goes, but the basics of it are, we prefer them to have something to do with aviation if possible, or at least something that's somewhat relative. At very least, it can't be anything that we wouldn't want to be connected with.
Right.
Obviously, like if Frosty Snow Cones comes out, that's not aviation, but that's fine.
Right.
So
do you have sponsorships from flight schools?
We have not had. We've had a couple of flight schools donate, and what they've really done that has helped us out is they have come to our events and give discovery flights.
Okay.
So they'll send.
So they have an opportunity to sell their flight school services through that.
Exactly.
That's what I was wondering about, because you got all these discovery flights happening, and who's directing them to the flight schools or wherever they need to go.
Yes.
Yeah. So I heard Dave Ramsey say on one of the shows I was watching, he was talking about how in the early days, he was looking for sponsors, and he was letting anybody that would write him a check be a sponsor. And he said he would be in an event, and he would say, you had such and such mechanic shop. I don't remember. I think he might have even said the name, and he would get all these people coming up angry at him because they were a sponsor of his show or whatever. And so they would go get their car worked on, and it was a complete disaster. They wouldn't get the car fixed or whatever. And so I was just, cause he now has a very, obviously he's Dave Ramsey, so, he can really vet them now, but, vetting the proper sponsors is super important. Yes. Because they're representing either the event or who you are. And I think what happens is in our world, again, back to the events type thing, is they get sponsors just because there's no budget. They're trying to get whoever. So I think it's important to, even though you need the money for the event or you need those sponsors, to really make sure that sponsors are vetted and that they align with your values. They're people of integrity, that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. I went to a Cybertruck event, and they gave a wrap away, and I won the wrap. Well, I had just wrapped my Cybertruck, so I was like, well, I don't really need it, but I reached out to the guy, and I was like, hey, I got a slew of other cars. You want to wrap one of those? He was like, yeah, sure. And then I got a message from the guy that was the main event holder of the deal, and he's like, yeah, this guy is, kind of shady and not really following up with me on the calls and all that. And even though it was a really basic where this guy came to him and said, hey, I want to give away a wrap and to maybe get his name out there or whatever. It was so early in the phase, it probably doesn't really matter, and I don't really care because whatever. But it was kind of that along those same lines where the guy that was hosting the event should have really vetted and made sure that this guy is legit.
Yes.
So those are kind of some important things.
Absolutely, you definitely don't want to be connected to somebody that's going to hurt your image that you've worked so hard to make what it is.
So do you ever get burned out doing the events?
Honestly, I haven't. It is absolutely a labor of love. Every event, it feels like Christmas. You just get out there and you don't know what's going to come out. You don't know what type of aircraft are going to show up. And I mean, it just never gets old. Seeing all those beautiful airplanes fly in, seeing these people who have never been up in a small airplane, these kids just smiling ear to ear, excited. Then they go up and they come down and their eyes are just, you can see it that they're just, their life's changed. And I remember what it was like when I first went up. I mean, I was looking for everything. I was boxing, I was riding horses, I was doing everything looking for something, and I didn't know what it was. I always liked roller coasters. I always loved adventure. I loved exhilaration and just adrenaline. And when I went up flying, I was like, wow.
Yeah,
I was like,
this
this
is
is good. And then, and it just gets better and better. I'll go up, every time I go up in a new aircraft, it just feels like the first time. When I go do something I've never done before, like do some aerobatics or some formation flight or some low and slow, I mean, it never gets old.
Yeah.
It never gets old.
Yeah.
And I'm preaching the choir here.
Yeah, so yesterday I got to have lunch with one of my old students who I taught to get his private pilot license. I hadn't seen him in 26 years, and so it was so exciting because I gave him his private in '98, I think it was. And since then, he's been a helicopter pilot for the DPS. He got full retirement from them. He's now flying for United. He flies, all the United fleet. He's typed in all of those. He's a United instructor in the simulator. And so it's like you have this snapshot of where he was back then, and then fast forward 26 years. And I walked away yesterday just so proud. And he walked in and he said, man, I always tell everybody I attribute my aviation career to Dan Schindler. Like, he's like, you're the guy that set the hook. You're the guy that helped me get my private pilot license. And so my word of encouragement for you guys and what you're doing out there is exactly that. You're giving a discovery flight to some kid that might be 10 or 12 years old, but you're changing everything for them. I had a friend that told me one time, he said, if it wasn't for aviation, I'd either be on drugs or dead. Aviation changed my life.
Yes.
And so what you guys are doing is absolutely amazing. I wish I could be more involved. I want to try to get more involved with you guys. It's weekends are nuts for me. And I was even supposed to be at the last event and couldn't do it because we have a little Airbnb business, so the TV fell off the wall. So I'm
always something.
I'm putting a TV on the wall when I should be out flying my airplane. You're like, what in the world? This is not right. Something's wrong with this picture, So anyway, any closing thoughts you want to say to a young entrepreneur or somebody that even in the aviation world, any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
If you're an entrepreneur, do not miss this social media opportunity that's out there. It can make all of your dreams come true. It can get your name out there faster than pretty much anything else. Aviation is a great a field to be involved with, whether as a career or as a hobby. Any type of business person, I think, can benefit from being involved with aviation because of the people it connects you with. This connection is a great example of that.
Yeah.
It connects you with people who are hardworking, driven, passionate, finishers, achievers. All of the things that you should want to surround yourself with as an entrepreneur, that's often who pilots are. Yeah. So it's just a top tier of individuals, and I am honored to be a part of that group. And just again, between social media, aviation, and being consistent, this Airplanes and Coffee, it didn't get at 340 overnight. It's been 4 years.
Yeah, like you said, it was grind. If you would have said, "Oh, I spent 5 hours a week on it" or whatever, then
who would have cared?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
But now I can walk around, like you said, with a legacy. I mean, no matter what, I'll always be able to tell people I started Airplanes and Coffee, right? So just that alone was worth all of that grinding. And again, the connections, the friendships, the experiences, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I want to say one thing, and then we'll wrap it up here. I always attribute my aviation career to my success in business. I had the best opportunity when I was a flight instructor because I got to sit in these little airplanes with these business owners, and I was teaching them to fly. And these guys are all, typically people that fly airplanes have money. So most of them are multimillionaire business owners. And I had the opportunity to sit 8 hours a day with all these different individuals that were business owners and millionaires and all this stuff. And to be able to teach them what I love. And then they ended up teaching me what now I love in the business world. And so, like you said, when you're in aviation, you learn systems, you learn SOPs, you learn processes, you learn being in aviation is the fundamental core of what you need to learn to be a good business owner. So what we can do is encourage all of my cleaning industry friends go get your pilot's license. It will change your world.
It will.
You know, and so anyway, well, John, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
It's been an honor and a privilege to have you here, and I look forward to connecting with you more in the future.
Yes, sounds great.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.